acquire key knowledge, understanding, and success skills. Now, let's take a look at those elements in the ring in more detail. Now, PBL starts with a challenging or driving problem or question. So the project is framed by a meaningful problem to be solved or a question to answer at the appropriate level of challenge. Now, you have to keep that in mind because that is essential for the student's success. PBL involves sustained inquiry because students engage in rigorous, extended process of posing questions, finding resources, and applying information. PBL is about authenticity because the project involves real-world context, tasks and tools, quality standards or impact, or the project speaks to concerns, interests, and issues that are important to students personally. It's about student voice and choice because students make decisions about the projects, including how they work and what they create, and express their own ideas in their own voice. It involves reflection because students and teachers reflect on their learning, the effectiveness of their inquiry and project activities, the quality of student work, the obstacles that will appear, and strategies for overcoming them. There's critique and revision. This is when students give, receive, and apply feedback to improve their process and products. And finally, the public product. Students make their project work public by sharing it and explaining it, or maybe sometimes presenting it to people beyond the classroom. So here we're talking about a real audience. Now, I'd like to show you an example of project work so we can observe how these elements are put together to create a meaningful learning experience for you and your students. Is that all right? So let me start by giving you a very, very, very helpful suggestion. So when you start planning your project work, do some backwards planning or backwards design. That is, start with the end in mind. Okay, so ask yourself questions like, what is your end goal? What do you want your students to be able to produce? What language and skills you want them to develop? So the idea here is for you to think about the end product, and then with that in mind, you start thinking backwards about what they will need to achieve those goals. I mean, in terms of research, the language, the tools they will need. And this is also a great opportunity for you to think about your part in it, your teaching behavior. And that leads to the second point, that is, provide the tools your students will need to complete the project. Whether it's linguistic tools, research, even stationery, provide anything they need, everything they need. You have to keep in mind that your primary goal is for them to succeed, so you have to help them get there. Your plan will help you define those tools, so make sure that you do your homework before they do theirs, all right? Now, this checklist for PBL works may help you with your planning. It'll help you think about how you incorporated the PBL elements into your product and how well you did it. And it'll show you, and in fact, spoiler alert, I will show you some more resources from PBL Works today. Okay, so this is just the beginning. You can use this checklist. This is the very start of your project, so you can use this checklist to help you out. Now, let me set up the context of the classroom. I'm going to show you the example now. So this is a group of lower secondary students. So we're talking 11 to 14-year-olds. The teacher has been working on and practicing narrative tenses using stories. More specifically, talking about mysteries and detective stories. And the idea here, the goal, was to spark an interest in the audience in those stories, but in a fun and interesting way. So how do we begin, right? So this is my context. This is my goal. What do I do next? Now, you can use this project planner to organize the information. So you can see this is the first page, right? So you can see here, there's general information about the group. So you have the project title, the driving question, general information about the student's level, the time you have available, what do you want your students to produce at the end, a brief summary of the project, right? So here, this is the first page. And then on the second page, you will find you can detail the content of what kind of skills you want your students to develop. Here we're talking about literacy skills, success skills, the standards if you are following any, the key vocabulary, and rubrics if you want to use them. So you can use these forms to help you plan the project. So this is the beginning of the process of project planning. Now, I just wanted to say that it's okay that if you don't have all the information all at once from the beginning, okay? Because the idea here for you, the idea to present these forms today is that to show you that you have tools to keep you organized. So keep filling it out as the information appears to you, because this will help you really get organized, and it's a good idea to have everything in one place. Now, it's important to mention that changes might happen along the way, especially when it comes to planning the time needed for each stage, and that is okay too. Now, keep in mind that the planner will help you see how much time you have to make the necessary changes, and that will also serve as a reference for your future project, okay? So it is a great tool. Now, going back to our driving question, or to the end goal of our project, right? So how can students engage the audience interest in storytelling, specifically in detective stories? Now, for this group, specifically, the decision was to produce a game. Now, as you do your backwards planning and think of all the main steps to complete the project, you may want to use this form with its milestones, the activities that will mark important moments in the project, okay? This form will help you think about and describe each of these milestones, including ways to do assessment on each of them. And you may also want to use the project calendar to help you plan in detail the time students will need to complete each step of the whole project. You can organize it by days, maybe weeks, describing how to reach each milestone separately. Now, guys, I just want to make a little comment here. I understand that it seems a lot. It is a lot of paperwork, but these tools will really help you see ahead and plan your project accordingly, okay? And you don't have to use them all, but once you get used to using them, you won't take as long as it did in the first time. And trust me, I'm talking from experience, it does make life easier, all right? Now let's take a look at the project itself. So in class, how would that work? How would that go? So we remember from the context that the teacher has already been working on narrative tenses and stories and detective stories. So there has been some work already. So that can be used as a lead into the idea. So the next thing to do is to actually introduce the project. And here, at this step, it is important to explain to your students what they're going to do, that they are going to work in groups, the language they're supposed to use, the skills they're going to develop, how long they will take, the resources available to do it. If you think it'll help, you can actually show them your project calendar, and even keep it in sight throughout so they can follow it and work to organize themselves. Next up, it's a good idea to show them an example or a model of what they're supposed to do. So they can go online and look at a few examples, right? You can ask students what kind of games they like to play and why, what is exciting about those games, right? Or run a search online and find many kinds of games available. And then you can have your students narrow down the search so to find specific examples of detective games, and let them learn more about the mechanics of each game, how long they take, and any other aspect of the game creation process, let's say, in order for him to get to have ideas, get inspired to actually produce the game. Now, that will lead them to the next step of the project, which is preparation. So now, at this point, students will assign roles and about who is going to do what and when, and also talking about the project calendar. They can put all that information in, right? And then they are going to make a decision about the type of mystery that the game is going to be about. So they can talk about maybe a robbery or somebody has been kidnapped. These are just 2 suggestions, right? Then they will come up with the story itself, which is the mystery to be solved. So what happened? When? Who were the people involved? Etc., right? And then they will come up with the game elements. So the characters, maybe some extra information that can help the audience solve the mystery. Then, of course, the solution to the game and how to present it. And they can also discuss the format the game will be presented in. So how are they going to do it? Will it be in print? And if it's in print, is it going to be a board game? Is it going to be a card game? Is it going to be a tabletop game? Or is it going to be, if they decide to go digital, they're going to create an online game. So which platform they're going to use, if it's going to be a single player game, if it's going to be a multiplayer game. And this one, specifically, when you talk about digital, this is a great opportunity for those students who are really good at it to go to let the imagination go wander and explore their creative side. So this one is a great one. Or if you want, and if you have the possibility, you can actually integrate it with the IT lessons that you have at school. So these are some of the elements that they're going to think about in order to prepare to actually produce the game, right? Now, you have a project planner to help you, right? So you already have the milestones and the calendar and the project planner. So those are tools for you. You can introduce your students to some tools so they can keep themselves and the group organized too. For example, they can have their own project calendar if you want. So each student will have a copy, or the group will have a copy, and each student will be responsible for his or her responsibilities. You can maybe provide an individual task checklist, right? And for the group, in case you want to establish very specific defined roles, you can show them this role descriptor. So they have a clear idea of what they're supposed to do, right? So all of this can be available to you. You can make these available to your students, or you can keep each of them will have a copy of it, or you can keep them on the wall. So every time it's when it's project time, they can always refer. They can always refer to that, right? Now, I want to take a break because I want to talk about language production, especially for us here today, because we are language teachers, we are English teachers. We want our students to use English every step of the way, right? So we must remember we want them to succeed in completing the project and developing, the linguistic skills. We want to develop the life skills at the same time. So we must think of ways in which how our students will tackle the tasks and what kind of support we can provide to help them out. Now, with that in mind, we can think of 2 types of language that they will need for the project. Now, the first kind of language they will need is called process language, which is the language they will need to work together. They may include negotiation, making decisions, brainstorming, organizing tasks. So that's language they will need to actually complete the project. Now, you can provide that kind of language on a handout or on the board and have them refer to it if you notice that they're speaking Portuguese, right? Remember what I said, you have to provide the tools, right? And the other kind of language we want them to produce is product language, which is the language used in the presentation of the final project at the end, the presentation of the project itself. So in this case, students can describe the game. So in the case of this particular project, students will describe the game. They're going to talk about the plot, maybe the characters, talk about why it's fun to play it, and maybe even demonstrate the game a little bit. So what kind of language would they be using here? You can think about the narrative senses that you have been working with them, language of persuasion, commercial language, right? A language you would see in a commercial. So why is it fun? Come play it. This is really great, etc., etc. And because presentation is something that is usually prepared, sometimes even rehearsed, you can help your students by making corrections in their notes, or maybe if they have a script, you can help them out with that script too. So the next step in the project is actually the production, right? So it's pretty hands-on, where students really get cracking. So they will get together, they will have meetings. So that can be in class, that can be online. To actually make the game, so they are going to produce the cards with the information about the characters, who's innocent, who's not, instructions, a board if they feel inspired, maybe packaging, maybe the box the game comes in. So at this point, they will have the opportunity to test the game and make corrections, and they will also prepare a little presentation or a demonstration of the game. So this is the final project and a bit of the presentation, okay? Now, this game is called Who Did It, right? So the story takes place at the prestigious Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, where the famous painting Self-Portrait with a Straw Hat by Vincent van Gogh has been stolen. Now, these 6 people were the last people seen at the museum before the robbery. We have a tourist, the museum director, a famous YouTuber, the museum janitor, a casino owner, and a security guard. Now, each player will play one of these characters and will receive a card with information about themselves, as in why they would steal the painting, and some information about 2 other characters, along with a second card telling them if they are innocent or if they are the thief. Now, their job is to play the character, and if they are the thief, they have to pretend they're innocent, right? So the idea here is to promote role-playing. So they have to think about the language they're going to use, and they have to be smart to convince other people that they are innocent. So that is a great idea, isn't it? So players will go around interrogating each other, collecting information, forming their own hypothesis, and then at the end of the game, they will accuse one other player. And if the thief is not accused by the majority, she or he wins the game. Now, at this point, the audience can play the game and provide feedback with their opinions, while you go on with assessment. Okay? Now, I wanted to take a moment about assessment, how to assess your students' performance in a project. So essentially, there are 2 kinds of assessment. There's formative assessment and summative assessment. But what is the difference between the 2? Essentially, basically, formative assessment happens when the chef tastes the soup. And in summative assessment, it's when the guest tastes the soup. So we are talking about the process and the end product, right? More specifically, formative assessment is an ongoing, so continuous process that happens throughout the project. And it's focused on students' experience and how they understand and master the content that they are working on. And it is great to inform the teacher's next step, whether he or she will need to perform interventions if they are necessary. Now, summative assessment happens at the end of the term, where teachers give students a final grade or a final mark that is usually aligned to a certain set of standards. So here we could talk about school standards or state standards, or so aligned to standards, right? And it's the final grade for evaluation. So that's the final grade for the project, or for the final grade for the term. Now, a couple of questions here. how will you assess your students? Will you assess them individually? Will you assess the group? Also, what can you assess in a project? What are you going to assess? Language, content, life skills maybe? Maybe everything? So you can assess different aspects of the student's production and in different ways, but in order to make that decision, you must remember why you wanted to work with projects in the first place. So your goals have to be very clear to you, right? So you remember your project planner, remember all the conversation we had in the beginning. So go back to your project planner, take a look at the goals that you established for the project there, and you will have a more clear idea of what you want to assess, right? Now, how do you do it? How do you conduct assessment? So assessment can be as simple as this, right? Students can use this system, which is, I like to call it the gladiator system. I don't know if you remember the movie, but in the movie Gladiator, there were these fight scenes at the Colosseum, and at the end of each battle, the emperor was supposed to decide if, by putting his thumb up, if the gladiator would survive, thumb down if the gladiator would die. So in our assessment system, we are not talking about living or dying, but we are talking about thumbs up for good, thumbs down for bad. And then there's a twist, which is this third option, which is you can keep your thumb sideways for okay. So there's good, okay, and bad, right? Now, the audience can use the system, the students can use the system, you can use the system to provide feedback like on the spot, right? And in every step of the way. So as you go in every step of the project and on the final project too. The system is great for formative assessments because it will give you like an idea of how students are going. It's simple, it's straight to the point, and you can have a feel of how things are going. And if you observe that too many, maybe more than half of the thumbs are sideways or down, maybe it's time for you to perform an intervention. So you can use that. You can run a quick thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb sideways in every step of the process, so you can observe how it's going. Now, another option for assessment is to use rubrics, like the one you see on the screen. Now, rubrics are a great tool for teachers and students because they make the assessment process efficient, consistent, objective, and quick. And with rubrics, teachers can create space for accommodation and differentiation in multi-level groups because they offer a range of quality levels. But the great thing is that rubrics are good for students because this way they have a very clear idea of what is expected of them. And that helps them think about their own learning journey to see how it matches up to the standard in the rubric. Now, this one pretty much covers everything from, you see the presentation, you see grammar, so language aspect, you see the mechanics of the presentation, demonstrated knowledge, requirements, organization, content knowledge, and thesis statement. So this one pretty much covers everything. But if you want to go more specific, if you want to be more specific, you can actually use this one from PBL Works too, which is all about collaboration skills. So you will have detailed descriptors of how students should collaborate. So you can use that as well. Here is another one for presentation skills. So you see, you can assess different aspects of students' performance in the project. So it's not just language; it's collaboration skills as well. If you want to use it maybe for summative assessments, that is, if you want to attribute those descriptors to a mark, you can do that, right? So you can attribute a value or a grade to each of the columns and then add up the grades to reach the final one. If you maybe you go through the rubrics and you see, no, none of this is not the ideal one for me. That one is not the ideal one for me. Maybe I have to change this. I would have to improve that. It's okay, because you also have rubrics for rubrics. So you create your own assessment system that way, right? This is all from PBL works. Now, something that is also very helpful for you, but especially for the students, is to have them do some self-assessment. It is a great opportunity for them to be really, truly honest with themselves about how they are contributing to the project, what they are doing well, what they could be doing better, and when they think it's okay, when they feel comfortable, and when they think it's necessary, they can actually have a conversation with you about it. And maybe you guys can sit together and think about a game plan to deal with those issues. Because remember, this is what we want them to succeed. You can use the gladiator system maybe, if that helps too, right? This one that you see on the screen was taken from Compact Preliminary for Schools. Or if there is another option, which is if you want to provide maybe more food for thought, you can ask them to answer these questions here on this form. Now, they don't have to hand in the answers in either of the cases, right? But again, like I mentioned, if they feel like it, and if you give them the room for it, you can have a conversation with them, reflect with them, and see what is going on, what are the pain points, and what are the strengths, and what you can do to help them out with those pain points. All right. Now, here is a suggestion for teachers who would like to do a project and have it integrated with your course book. So first off, these are Shape It and Own It, are brand new titles for teenage students. And one of its great features is that they both bring project work integrated with the course content. Let's take a look at it. So first off, you will have suggestions to work with projects in every unit of the book. Here's an example from Shape It 3. This is a citizen project. You start with a reading activity to lead students into the project. And then you can work on tips for life skills. Like here you see how to make decisions in a group. And then instructions on how to plan, present, and check the final product or your students' work. And you may want to follow the instructions in the project book to help you out, or you may want to blend them with the planner and the forms that we've talked about already. Now, this year has been particularly difficult to promote student interaction, right? So in conversations with teachers, one of the most challenging times in remote lessons is to have students interacting with each other and with them, with the teachers. So in this scenario, PBL can be very, very useful because it does not necessarily have to take place in a physical classroom, right, in a real classroom. And you can use it to assess students' work, again, beyond the language skills, all those skills that we talked about. Now, you may use these tools that you see on the screen to help you organize meetings, to have students collaborate under your supervision, to share files, or even go one step further in project management. Now, I won't be going into detail on each of them right now because we don't have time for that, but I will give you the link at the end so you can look them up if you're interested, okay? So remember, there's homework for you at the end. Now, both Shape It and Own It have the possibility to do project work online. So this is an example from Own It, actually Own It 1, not Own It 3. I'm sorry. So this is how you see it in the book, right? So this is an idea for a food truck project. But you can also log into Cambridge One, which is the platform where you will find, among other materials and tools, this area called Collaboration Plus, right? Now, let's take a look. So we'll scroll down and we will find the food truck project. And when you click on it, you will see 4 different sections. Get ready, plan and design, share and present, and reflect. Now, each of these sections will detail the steps your students will need to work on to complete the project. And as you can see on the screen, you will also have teacher's notes for every step of the way. Now, for example, in plan and design, they will have to name the truck, design the menu, design the food truck, and create it, finally create the truck. Now, you can organize students in groups, like you see on the screen, and you can actually observe what they have been doing, like this. Here is the blue group and the green group. And the blue group is already creating names for the food truck, right? You see that you have a field on top for you, and that is the idea is that you can actually make comments too, so you can provide some feedback on what they're doing every step of the way, right? And then at the end, they will be able to share the final project and present it, and then you can provide feedback and assessment. So it's all in one place, easy to access, easy to use. Good idea, right? Now, we are coming to the end of the presentation, but I'd like to leave you with some final tips and reminders. So again, it's all about doing project work well. So the first one is start small, but think big. I mean, you may not be sure if you want to work with projects, and that's okay, because we usually feel that way about things we don't know much about, right? We're not comfortable with that. So it's okay to start small. Remember to use the project planner to see how complex the project is and how long it'll take for your students to complete it. If it's too much, maybe you should save it for later, when you're more used to working with PBL, because over time, you will feel more confident to try new things, right? Next one is remember to start with the end in mind. Remember to start with the end in mind. Remember what I said about backwards planning, right? Okay, so this will help you think more clearly of what you want your students to produce at the end, the steps they will need to do it, and especially what you will have to do to have them out. Next up is don't forget to help your students all the way. Get them what they need, from stationery to language support to ideas, anything you can do to help them. But keep in mind that you don't want to spoon feed them. You want them to succeed. That's different. There is a difference, right? Make sure your students have the time they need to complete the project. Okay, so again, the project planner will help you keep it next to you all the time, right? Especially if you are beginning to work with PBL. Don't have your students present their projects at the day before you give them their final marks for the term, because you should have them do that before that, because if they need extra time, if you need to make changes to the planner, you and the students will actually have time to do it, right? Now, do you have an idea for a great project, but it's too big? It's okay, you can chunk it, right? Have students develop one part of the project in one term, then another part in another term, and so on and so forth. So that way, they will be able to develop a big project through several little ones. Not only they will be able to complete each step of the project, but the results and the sense of accomplishment will go through the roof. Now, going digital is always a good option. So again, like we mentioned before, our students are now used to using technology. So why not use it for projects? It'll keep them engaged, and it will certainly make life easier for you too. But if you're on a budget, that is okay too, right? So one of the greatest things about project work is that you can actually allow your students to be creative, to go nuts, and to really exercise that creative side of them. So use paper, plastic, use paint, crayons, use all sorts of materials, right? They will learn, and not only it is a great, it's great for motor skills, but they will learn about recycling too. And last but not least, share. Not the singer, okay? The verb, share. Share ideas, share observations, share materials, share tips, share everything. So it's not just about our students learning how to collaborate. You will learn how to collaborate too. It'll make everybody's lives easier, and it will certainly inspire others to create their own projects. Now, I'm not sure we have time for questions, so I'm going to stop sharing the presentation and check the checkbox for questions. Let me see. Gonna take a moment to take a sip of water and see if you have any questions. Oh, wow. Thanks a lot. My pleasure. How can we handle large groups of students to make oral activities? So the idea here for you, first of all, you can split them into groups, and you can, as they work together in their groups, you can go around and check what they're doing. This is one way to do it. I mean, I don't know how many students you're working with, but the idea again is like when you chunk a big project into small parts, you can actually do it with a large group of students as well. So we'll have several groups of students, and you will go around and observe what they're doing and the language they are using. Maybe you won't be able to do it all in. You won't be able to observe all your students in one session. So you can do it like in one session. You will do this part of the this bit of the class, and the other session you do the other bit of the class. Does that make sense? What theoretical reference do you indicate about PBL? Ah, Maria Luisa, wait a second. I am going to give you homework, and in the homework you will see the references that I used for this presentation, okay? How do you work with lower levels? Polga, Costa? Again, Polga, you have to remember that you want your students to be successful. You want them to succeed. So when you do your planning, think about the tools that they will actually need. So if you are working on lower levels, you can actually have handouts with the language that you want them to produce, so they can keep them next to them every time that they're doing project work. And again, like as you go around the classroom observing what they're doing, you can actually check if they are using the language and actually help them out. Is that okay with that? I don't know if that's a good answer to your question. Claudia Mendes, would you show your students the rubric before starting the project itself? Yes, absolutely. If you have the opportunity, yes. I guess the idea, again, we want our students to succeed. And one great way to help them succeed is actually to be clear with them about what you expect them to do. So yes, if you have the opportunity, if you have the time, yes, please share the rubrics with them. Show them, this is what I expect from you. This is what you should be thinking about as you work, as you develop the project. Do you think it's possible to do it with private students? I do think so, yes. You may not be working in groups, or you may want to maybe like pretend that you are a member of a group and help them out. And you will let them do the work. You will allow them to do the developing the project itself. That will be on them. But you can actually. I think it's possible to do it with private students too. I mean, in this case, I'm talking about one-to-one students. But if you have a group of private students, you can definitely do project work as well. Any other questions? Okay, it's Olga, not Polga. Okay, I'm good. How successful will it be with online students? Elazir, that's your name? Well, again, if you're working with platforms such as Zoom or Teams, you can actually split your students into breakout rooms, and then you go and observe what each group is doing one at a time. So yes, you can actually do it with online students too. Like I said, you can use all those tools, or you can use the tools, for example, with Shape It, you can use Collaboration Plus. The idea is to like I said, if you can actually provide physical tools for them to complete the project, but you can also provide online tools for them to do the same, right? How can we evaluate them in an easier way for us to check the results of the project? An easier way for us to check. Like I said, if you use the rubrics, you will attribute a number, you will attribute a mark to one of the columns, and at the end, and then you will choose the rubrics you will use to according to the skills you want to evaluate, and then at the end you just add up the numbers. Let's see. And what about dealing with students who aren't on the track? I mean, the ones who are having difficulties in communication and aren't participating so well. So again, one of the things that is great about using rubrics is that you can accommodate for differentiation. So you will have the opportunity to actually assess those cases. You will be able to observe those cases. You can use the rubrics to have a clear picture of what is going on in your classroom, like to of the students that are doing well, the students that are contributing, and to the students that are not doing so well. That in terms of formative assessment, I mean, so as you observe that, you can actually maybe track them down and have a conversation with them, provide feedback, and help them, and actually provide the help they will need in order for them to start communicating and contributing more often. Now, what if you can't split your students? The platform provide, I don't use a minute. Okay, so you don't have Zoom and you have 35 students in each class. So you can use other tools. You can use, for example, maybe you can use Google Classroom, and you can use Google Forms, and you can actually have all the project laid out in with a set of instructions that will be distributed to students, so they have a clear idea of what they are supposed to do, and then they will organize themselves in small groups using maybe a different platform, and they can talk through WhatsApp, and they can send each other written messages. They can send each other audio messages too. Now, what about a final event to celebrate the results of the projects, like a special session? Yes, Marines, absolutely. You should actually do that. One of the greatest things about projects is, like, when it comes to the moment of the final presentation, when they actually display their works, this is a moment to celebrate their work, to celebrate the fact that they completed the project, that it was successful, and they actually did it together. So yes, it is a great idea to have like a joint presentation or an event to celebrate that, for sure, absolutely. Okay. Now, guys, I'm checking my watch here, and now I need to wrap it up. So we have come to the end of the presentation now, and I just want to share with you the last slides. Now, remember I mentioned there was going to be homework for you. So there it is. So here are the link and the QR code for a handout with links for everything that I presented here today that will help you when you start working with PBL. So please, what I want you to do is download the handout, visit the websites, read the articles, search for ideas, download the resources, look at examples, and get cracking. Okay, really start working on PBL. It's going to be so rewarding, and you are going to be, it's going to be a great, it will give your students a great sense of accomplishment. And when you do, I'd love to hear from you. So please don't forget to email me when you do it. All right. Now, just to finish up, I just wanted to remind you of the titles that we showed here today. So first up are our new titles for teens. So we have Shape It for American English and Own It for British English. They both bring tons of ideas for projects, both in print and online. So please visit the website for more information. And if you want to find out more about the life skills, the life competencies that I mentioned here today, you can also visit the Cambridge Life Competencies website and know more about the Cambridge Life Competencies framework. So visit the website, download the booklets for all of them, and enjoy your reading. And lastly, I will leave you with my contact information. So please feel free to email me with your questions and comments on this presentation and any other issues we can help you with. And don't forget that your certificate will be sent to you next week. I apologize in advance for those who posted questions that I was not able to answer right now. If you would send me an email with your questions, I would be happy to answer them later on. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in person maybe in our future events. So have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.